12,000 years ago, the world was a very different place. Ice still covered much of the earth. Winters were long, summers were short, and survival depended on movement. Human beings were nomads, endlessly walking through frozen valleys and wild forests. Every meal came from hunting, gathering, or pure luck. Life was unpredictable. Food was never guaranteed. But then, something happened. Something small, yet powerful enough to reshape human destiny. A seed was planted, and from that moment, the story of the first garden began. As the Ice Age slowly ended, the world began to change. The great glaciers retreated, and for the first time in thousands of years, the Earth warmed. Rainfall became more predictable. Seasons settled into a familiar rhythm. Rivers flowed longer. Valleys stayed green for months instead of weeks. And in these newly stable landscapes, plants responded. Wild grains like wheat and barley began to thrive in the Middle East. They grew in massive clusters, ripening at the same time each year. For early humans, this was a revelation. If plants grew with the seasons, they could be predicted. And if they could be predicted, they could be harvested. This simple observation, seeds ripen together, became the first step toward cultivation. Humans had discovered a cycle, a pattern in nature, a doorway into a new way of living. Somewhere between the Mediterranean Sea and the Persian Gulf lies a region historians call the Fertile Crescent. Today, it stretches across modern Iraq, Turkey, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, and Israel. 12,000 years ago, this land was unlike any place on Earth. It was a cradle of natural abundance. Wild wheat and barley covered the hillsides. Fig trees shaded the valleys. Lentils, chickpeas, and other pulses grew freely along riverbanks. To early humans, these plants were lifelines, but soon, they became something more. People began to notice a strange pattern. When harvested seeds fell to the ground, new plants appeared in the same spot the next season. This was the birth of the idea. Seeds can return. And with this realization, the first accidental gardens began to form. Around ancient campsites, discarded grains took root. Small patches of edible plants grew near homes. Humans had not yet become farmers, but the land itself was showing them the way. When these seeds fell around their camps, something remarkable happened. The next season, tiny green shoots emerged exactly where humans lived and worked. These were the first proto-gardens, small patches of intentionally improved plants growing right beside early homes. To harvest these fields, the Natufians crafted the earliest known agricultural tools: stone sickles to cut grain, grinding stones to make flour. Simple, but revolutionary. They didn't yet think of themselves as farmers, but they were already shaping evolution itself. As humans began tending the land, certain plants became the stars of the first gardens. Archaeology tells us which crops fed and shaped early civilizations. Among them was einkorn wheat, one of the earliest cultivated grains, small but nutritious. Alongside it grew barley, hardy and adaptable to changing climates. Figs were next, perhaps the first fruit to be deliberately cloned by humans. A single fig branch could grow into a new tree, ensuring a dependable harvest. Lentils and chickpeas provided essential protein, while flax offered not only food but also fibers for clothing and ropes. These were more than plants, they were the foundation of civilization itself. Before the invention of irrigation canals, humans had to work with nature, not against it. They relied on the patterns of rivers, rain, and dew to nourish their crops. One of the earliest techniques was flood-based farming. When rivers overflowed during seasonal rains, fertile silt spread across the fields, naturally watering the soil. Seasonal wetlands were another secret. Low-lying areas trapped rainwater, creating pockets of moisture where plants thrived. Even simple dew collection was used. Leaves and stones captured water from the night air, providing a subtle but reliable source. And on hillsides, rain-fed terraces allowed water to soak slowly into the soil, preventing erosion while feeding crops. In these early systems, humans became students of the environment, learning to harness water without changing its course. By around 9500 BCE, humans were no longer nomads. Permanent settlements began to appear across the Fertile Crescent. With them came the first truly planned gardens, a revolutionary step in human history. The ancient town of Jericho, one of the world's oldest settlements, offers a glimpse into this transformation. Here, gardens grew near constant spring water, arranged in neat, circular plots. Every plant had its place, and every harvest was carefully tended. Farther north, the mysterious site of Göbekli Tepe reveals a different story. Archaeologists have found evidence of large-scale grain processing, suggesting that even ceremonial sites required organized food production. In Mesopotamia, early gardens became more sophisticated. Rows of seeds were planted systematically. Manure was added to enrich the soil, and simple stone-lined channels guided water to thirsty crops. These gardens were no longer accidental. They were engineered. The seeds of civilization were being sown. To understand the first gardens, let's take a closer look at how humans actually grew their food. Step 1. Breaking the soil with simple digging sticks. No plows, no machines, just a pointed stick and human hands. Step 2. Dropping seeds into the freshly turned soil. Each seed held the promise of the next harvest. Step 3. Covering the seeds with a mixture of soil and ash. Ash enriched the soil with nutrients, helping the plants grow stronger. Step 4. Watering. They relied on nearby rivers, rainwater, or simple channels to keep their crops hydrated. Step 5. Harvesting with stone blades. The crops were carefully cut and gathered. And finally, Step 6. Grinding grains on stones to make flour, the first step toward bread and a more stable food supply. These simple steps laid the foundation for civilization, a world built on careful observation, patience, and nature's cycle. As humans tended their early gardens, they began to notice a simple truth. Not all soil is the same. Some patches produced lush, healthy plants, while others struggled. Through observation and experimentation, they discovered ways to enrich the soil naturally. Ash from campfires added vital potassium, helping crops grow stronger and more resilient. Animal manure supplied nitrogen, giving plants the nutrients they needed to flourish. Flood silt from overflowing rivers deposited a mix of minerals and micronutrients, turning bare land into fertile ground. And mulching with leaves protected the soil, retained moisture, and slowly released nutrients back into the earth. With these early techniques, humans were not just planting seeds, they were shaping the land itself.
Over generations, humans began to shape the plants they relied on. Through careful selection and repeated cultivation, wild species were transformed into the first domesticated crops.
Seeds became larger, providing more nutrition per harvest. Stalks softened, making harvesting easier. Fruits became sweeter, encouraging consumption and seed saving. Grain heads that once shattered in the wind now stayed intact, ensuring more reliable harvests. Overall, yields increased, supporting larger communities and permanent settlements. This silent revolution, the domestication of plants, was as important as the invention of tools or the discovery of fire. Humans and plants were now partners in survival. The gardens of 12,000 years ago may seem distant, but their influence reaches us even today. Composting, a cornerstone of sustainable gardening, has its roots in ancient ash pits. Irrigation channels, carefully designed by early Mesopotamians, inspired the way we water crops even now. Soil rotation, a technique to maintain fertility, echoes the natural cycles first observed by our ancestors. And seed saving, the careful preservation of the best plants, has been practiced for over 10,000 years. In every modern garden, backyard farm, and sustainable farm, the legacy of the first gardeners lives on. We continue a journey that began with a single seed in a wild landscape. From a single seed planted in a wild landscape came villages, cities, civilizations, and eventually, the world as we know it today. Every harvest, every garden, every field we tend is connected to that first act of planting. We are still tied to the first gardener who carefully placed a seed in the soil 12,000 years ago. It is a reminder that even the smallest actions, a seed, a stick, a moment of observation, can change the course of history.